next recipe is going to be a beef stroganoff, which is found on fondbonebroth.com. I'm using 1 pound of ground pork from Ayrshire Farms. It's organic. You could use 1 pound of beef. I had a half a cup of onion left over that I wanted to cook with too, so I'm adding some items into the recipe that weren't there just because I wanted to use what I have in my pantry. That's what makes it an easy lunch recipe. 4 stalks of organic celery, and I ended up using a half a cup of yellow pepper. I did not have mushrooms that the beef stroganoff called for, so instead I just substituted peppers in. I did end up sauteing these all together. Of course, I finally chopped them and really diced them small. I had 2 garlic cloves. The recipe calls for 3, but that's okay. I did end up using 2. Simply smash your fresh garlic cloves and then dice them together to put them into your mixture to saute together with your ground beef or ground pork. Make sure it is thoroughly cooked and mix together in your garlic with your beef, with your onions, and then add into it your vegetables, your grounds, your organic celery and your organic peppers. This mixture, it smells delicious. Then I added into it the fond bone broth. You could use the different flavors for it. 2 cups. I let the 2 cups of the fond bone broth simmer into the beef stroganoff mixture that I'm making. I used the youth tonic one. Oh my goodness, it tasted so good. 2 cups, let it simmer for 45 minutes on low heat to help infuse the flavors. So this video is sponsored by Fond Bone Broth. I will link down in the description link below where you can order a whole case and get it set up on auto ship for the amazing bone broth to be delivered directly to your door. It's sustainable, organic, brewed like beer, infused like tea, sip like espresso, and level up flavor for any lunch recipe or dinner recipe. Fond Bone Broth is sustainable. It's from organic farms that they partner with for the iconic glass jars stored on the shelf for every part of process designed with our world in mind. Number 2, they're also functional, is that every ingredient for fond bone broth is hand-picked and paired to optimize absorption and taste. After 45 minutes, I added a half a cup of the heavy whipping cream together. And then I simply just put this together. I did not have egg noodles. Instead, I used 2 cups of squash. A neighbor had some fresh squash from their garden and ended up giving it to me, but that sauce is so filling. It's a healthy lunch, and it's really easy to make with this healthy recipe. And that is your full lunch meal. It's delicious and very filling. So first, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you can skip ahead if you would like to not use dried garbanzo beans. You could actually use chickpeas from a can. I will put a timestamp in the description link below. But we're going to go ahead and add 1.5 cups of dried chickpeas to water, fill it up with several inches of water above it, and start to boil the water. To make sure that we're getting our dried chickpeas cooked, our dry garbanzo beans cooked. You're going to boil it for 5 minutes, and then you're going to let it sit for an hour with the lid covered on it to get the beans cooked. Again, you can use canned beans and skip this step, and you can check the timestamp below to skip ahead. So once this is cooked, we're going to go ahead and drain that water, and then we're going to go ahead and add the cooked beans into, after we've drained it, we're going to go ahead and add the cooked garbanzo beans and chickpeas to a pot again and add 2 cups of the fond bone broth. And again, this fond bone broth is one of the best. It's shipped directly to your house. You can get on auto ship, but you're going to let this boil all together, your beans and the fond bone broth, for a couple of minutes, then reduce the temperature and let it sit that way for 2 hours with the lid slightly ajar on it. And then that way it's going to soak in the juices, soak in all of the amazing healing properties that comes with fond bone broth. Check out down below in my description bone broth benefits, the video I did on bone broth of why it's so healing for our bodies, for our guts. And this is a really easy recipe for hummus to get it, into for nourishing components of it. So I use this other half of the garbanzo beans, and ironically, I washed out my fond bone bar jar, and I'm going to put the extra beans in that. I did use Fresh Jack's Smoky Southwest. I'm using a half a tablespoon of the Smoky Southwest in there. I'm going to go ahead and put my fond bone broth, the garbanzo beans, and just put that in the pantry to use for later. So this recipe calls for 1/4 cup of well-stirred tahini that's going to go in there in addition to our 1.5 cups of chickpeas. We're going to go ahead and put that directly into a food processor or a blender. I didn't have a food processor, so I just used a blender. Super, super simple. I will link this organic tahini down below. I did also use 2 limes in there. The recipe calls for 1/4 cup of lime or lemon juice. 1 lime was not enough, so I added a second squeezed lime, a freshly squeezed lime juice in there. And then I started to add my chickpeas into the mixture, pureed it. I added batches slowly but surely of the chickpeas in there. In addition, I did add 2 garlic cloves. I had already put in the 1/2 tablespoon of the Fresh Jack Southwest seasoning. If you're not cooking your garbanzo beans, add it into the recipe. And then 1/4 cup of the fond bone broth that we had cooked the beans with to boil them together. Then you're going to add that into the blender. Mix it and keep this process going, and that is the end result. The easiest hummus recipe from scratch. So simple, and you can pair it with freshly served vegetables. We had some fresh cucumber from our garden to pair it with, fresh red peppers. My 4-year-old was obsessed with this recipe. It tasted so good, so hearty, filled with great fiber, and also with some good protein there too. And with the fond bone broth included in this recipe, you can definitely taste the flavor of adding the fond bone broth versus not having the fond bone broth in the hummus recipe. Lots of extra flavor and those good proteins added too as a result of fond being made with it. Super simple. The next lunch recipe we're going to do is having youth tonic. I love to sip on fond bone broth for my lunch. I have 2 cups of bone broth throughout the day for lunch, and it's extremely filling. Our next recipe is going to be our chicken enchiladas. I took our fond bone broth, 2 cups of the bone broth. It doesn't matter which flavor that you want to use for it, which is great. It's open-ended on that sense. But pour in your 2 cups of bone broth. You're going to cook a whole chicken. I will link down below the meal prep recipe that I used to make the whole chicken. It's a whole organic chicken from Ayrshire Farms with Gentle Harvest. And take your whole chicken. I did end up using Fresh Jack's Island spice. You can use whatever spices you would like to put in there from Fresh Jack's. With the fond bone broth, with the chicken, cook it for an hour. Very simple. I will link that recipe in the description link below. From there, after we've cooked our whole organic chicken, then you can take a 1/2 cup of onions and then 2 cups of your organic chicken for your chicken enchiladas. Chop up the chicken, and we're going to mix and saute the onions with the chicken into a big, I used a cast iron skillet, but you're going to mix that together along with some cream cheese. I had some frozen cream cheese I had wanted to get rid of, so I put in there a cup of frozen cream cheese along with my Fresh Jack's Smoky Southwest. I did use 1/4 cup of Fresh Jack's Smoky Southwest, mixed it together like a taco recipe. I did also end up putting in some garlic. I only had 2 cloves, although the recipe does call for a little bit more than that. And mix that together to saute it like a taco mixture. I then used 1 cup of canned corn. You could use fresh corn, use what you have in your pantry. Mix that together in our taco mixture. Again, sauteing it all together to make it this delicious enchilada filling. Put in 1 cup of salsa, mix that together. This lunch recipe is so simple and so easy. I did end up putting a 1/2 cup of some mozzarella cheese I had. I wanted to get rid of it because it was frozen. And then 1 cup of diced green chilies. I use the mild because I'm a baby about spice, but you can make them spicy. And then you're gonna have this great enchilada filling. Oh my goodness. This recipe, this lunch recipe, you can put on it freshly grated grass-fed cheese. I love freshly grated cheese as opposed to pre-shredded cheese because it makes it taste better. So mix that together. You're going to go ahead and start your oven for 350 degrees. I'm making it 2 ways. One is a taco enchilada casserole that's low carb without tortillas, and then the regular version is with tortillas. If you're doing the casserole and the enchilada casserole, simply just put your filling in with a cup of shredded cheese. For your enchiladas, you're going to go ahead and put down a 1/2 cup of salsa into your glass Pyrex dish. You're going to get 5 flour tortillas or corn tortillas. enchiladas, and then take 3/4 of a cup of your enchilada mixture, roll it together, put the open side face down. You'll see that the closed side is face up, and then we're gonna go ahead and put some shredded cheese and another 1/2 cup of salsa on top. Put it into your oven at 350 degrees and bake it for 20 minutes. Rolling those enchiladas together is really, really simple. Your children can help you do this, or you can use this as a freezer menu if you're really busy with work. It's an easy recipe that can be very simply frozen, and then put it in, bake it. It can be served with some avocado, with some guacamole, sour cream. It is absolutely fabulous. Look at that. You can make it 2 ways, whichever way makes the most sense for your household, and for the portion sizes you want to have. But if you found this video helpful, make sure you smash that like button, click subscribe, and check out our other videos down in the playlist. You can also check out Fawn Bone Broth in the description link below to order your auto ship case of bone broth directly to your house. Make it a powerful day, my friends. See you next time.